Jai Prabhuji. Today we are reviewing the third article out of the 4 articles that we promised we are going to meet in the section that deals with the master-disciple relationship. So to remind the frame, we said that in this course we are going to have different chapters about different topics. Now we're still in the first chapter that deals with the master and the disciple. We covered 2 articles, and today we are going to review the third article, and we will dedicate one class to an entire article. This article is an answer of Prabhuji to the question, could accepting a master be an obstacle for me on the path to self-realization? Is there a possibility that having the guidance of a realized being is not going to help me, but the opposite, that I will advance faster and easier without this individual? And let's read exactly the words of the question as it appears in the book. I know that there were enlightened masters who had no guru. Could accepting a master prevent me from following my own path and hence postpone my enlightenment? So this is a very good, appropriate, important question that it is natural that it will be born in the investigation of a sincere seeker who wants to transcend the egoic phenomenon and ask himself questions. This is a very valid and important one that there is a lot of wisdom regarding it because it was dealt in length and breadth in many different paths. And Prabhuji, as I see it, takes this question very seriously. He respects it very much and he gives us a very thorough and comprehensive answer. So what we see in Prabhuji's answer is that it is an answer that can assist the most basic level of knowledge, understanding, and experience in this field, and also the most high and sophisticated level of questions of disciples. And this is the objective answer that I think Prabhuji found, gathered. Probably this is a question that he himself asked himself along his path of being a seeker. And what we see here is, again, a very comprehensive analysis into this delicate and sophisticated topic. And in my eyes, it's even a little shocking that it's in such a short text, we get so much a complete answer that addresses all the aspects, points, questions, and answers in regard to this question. And the answer of Prabhuji is not even the entire article that is relatively short, but the first part of this article, before Prabhuji starts to answer this question very carefully, seriously again, he speaks about the questionnaire, about us. So there is a significant part out of this article that he dedicates to the questioning, to the questionnaire, to the state in which we are coming to hear the answer. And this is something, as we already spoke in different ways, is essential in the retroprogressive yoga, and we will find it again and again, that the attention is brought to us, not only to the wisdom, to revelation of enlightened masters, to guidance, but a lot of the guidance will bring us to a state in which we contemplate on ourselves, in which we evaluate ourselves. And this is done even in a book. We can, if we follow Prabhuji's words, they will take us to observe ourselves before we start to listen to the question. So here Prabhuji again shifts the focus to the questionnaire and acknowledges the fact that by asking this question, Prabhuji tells the questionnaire, notice that you are already positioning yourself in a place of a disciple. You are asking a question, someone that you recognize as a valid source of knowledge. This is why probably you ask him. And this is the basis that establishes the master-disciple relationship. And then Prabhuji will start by quoting the Bhagavad Gita 4:34 that shows us what are the qualifications of a disciple. In this verse, Krishna instructs Arjuna not only to seek realized beings, seers of truth. This is also very significant and it is part of Krishna's instruction. But in addition, he guides him on the attitude in which he should approach them, because this is of utmost significance. As we said, we find it over and over in the Retroprogressive Yoga. It's not only how much the master is enlightened, how authentic is the book, how enriching is the lecture, but what is our state of mind when we come in touch with these objects. What is the state of mind of us when we read the book, when we watch the lecture, when we are disciples in the ashram? The part of both individuals is significant in this dialogue. We said this is a dialogue. The master disciple speaks about a dialogue, and this dialogue is relevant, in my opinion, to anybody who comes in touch with wisdom of truth and is interesting to inquire into it. And so what we find here again in the beginning is contemplation on the questionnaire. So let's read Prabhuji's words and continue to speak about them. From the very moment you ask this, you are becoming a disciple. The nature of discipleship is inquiry. Krishna says, Tadvidhi panipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshyanti te jnanam jnanina statva darshinaha. Try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire submissively and render service unto the master. Self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. Bhagavad Gita 4:34. Pariprashnena means submissive inquiries. Inquiry and service, or seva, are the two pillars of the master-disciple relationship. So Prabhuji, as we said, acknowledges the fact that by asking this question, one turns himself into the position of a disciple if he's approaching a spiritual master and he wants to hear his answer. And by this, probably what we can also understand is that the questioner already accepts the validity and the importance of this relationship because he already exercises it himself. Next, himself or herself. Next, Prabhuji will tell us, if we position ourselves in a place of a disciple, let's understand better what does it mean to be a disciple. And now we get the quote of the Bhagavad Gita that speaks about service and inquiry. And in this verse, first we see that the basic of this relationship is to ask questions, to approach a source of wisdom and ask questions. But what we also get in this verse that Prabhuji walks us into is the attitude in which we should ask our question, the nature and the quality of our questioning. And this verse tells us, as we just read, that the qualifications to approach a spiritual master, as Krishna recommends to Arjuna, are service and inquiry, submissive inquiry, humble inquiry. In other words, really listening, intense listening, receptivity. If you really want to know, if you really care about the answer, because we can ask this very same question on different levels of consciousness. We can ask it out of simple superficial curiosity. We can ask it maybe to have more knowledge and be able to repeat it and explain it, but without really caring ourselves. And we can ask it in the most intimate, fundamental level that is going to impact our life, as Prabhuji soon will explain to us, that we really want to know the answer. This is the most intense level that we are curious because we ourselves want to implement the wisdom that we are going to get here. It's relevant to us in the most intimate and profound level. And what we see here is the disciple is not only someone who simply asks questions a realized being. Maybe there could be a situation where a reporter asks a very enlightened spiritual master questions, but he's not really interested in the words. He wants to make an interesting article. So part of the external qualifications are there, and yet the heart of the disciple is absent. So if we really want to receive knowledge, again, we need to develop the qualifications that are recommended in this verse in the Bhagavad Gita of service and of inquiry. Someone, as we said, can join an ashram and have a spiritual name and change his clothes and adopt a sadhana. But the attitude of the disciple might not yet be born. This is something that we need to develop, reflect on, and advance in, so we can receive as much as possible the wisdom that flows from the master all the time, constantly. And at the same time, maybe a personality is not going to shift his entire life, is not caring about becoming a disciple, is not interested in starting to adopt externally spiritual life. But he is really inquisitive. He is really open. He really wants to transcend himself. And he will be fully listening to the answer that will come to him. At this very moment, we are disciples. We can become disciples for a short time by opening and listening. And as I said, I think this whole beginning prepares us for the answer that soon will come. So in my eyes, Prabhuji says, I will answer you a complete answer, a thorough answer, a thoughtful answer, out of experience, out of knowledge. But how much are you going to benefit out of it? What is the level of interest that you have? What is the level of receptivity that you have? And in this, as I said before, I think that already Prabhuji increases our receptivity. Once we evaluate ourselves, once we focus on ourselves and check really our motives, maybe some of us will put the book aside and understand this is too profound, it is not for them. But maybe those who will stick and be interested can benefit much more thanks to the introduction that Prabhuji walks us through. Many people ask questions, but disciples' inquiries are different. Disciples do not ask out of curiosity, but because these doubts disturb the routine and keep them awake at night. They are vital, a matter of life and death. The quality of inquiry depends on how intense the quest is. Inquiring is part of a transformative process because the answers might compel us to make profound changes, to accept uncomfortable situations, or to give up attachments. The Guru's responses require commitment and can revolutionize our inner world. So we see here what we spoke, that a question of a genuine disciple, regardless he is currently in a relationship of master and disciple or not, is very intense. He is ready to change his life for whatever answer will come because he is so much interested in this question. It bothers him. Prabhuji says it's a matter of life and death. It doesn't allow him to sleep. This is significant. And even if we're not in this level, at least we can have much more receptivity, attention, investigation, inquiry into the words in order to benefit as much as we can in our current situation. So let's say that the answer that we are going to get from Prabhuji is here. We said it's complete. It's coming from a realized being. It's thoughtful. It's comprehensive. We want to get as much as we can from this answer. It's here in front of our eyes. And we said the words of this question, the specific wording of the question, could fit, in my opinion, different levels of intensity of thought that Prabhuji speaks about. We can ask out of superficial thinking, or more deep, or more deep, or more deep. The higher our level of thought, of interest in the answer, the more we are going to receive. So we said if Prabhuji's answer is here, if we will ask in this level, in my opinion, we will get this level out of this answer. If we will ask on this level, we will get this amount out of this answer, etc. So again, all this is a preparation for the answer that is going to come. If you want intellectual knowledge about mysticism, spirituality, or religion, studying comparative religions or theology at the university will be enough. A master is only necessary if you are seeking self-realization and are ready to make a greater commitment to the journey. The encounter between disciple and guru is a meeting between questions and the answer. The pedagogue offers answers, but the master is the answer. So up till this point, we got the preparation. Half of the article is focusing on us, on the questions and on the questionnaire. And now we will get Prabhuji's answer. As we said, it's very comprehensive, and we want to listen to point by point to get the complete picture of this analysis. The first point that Prabhuji makes, also referring and respecting the exact wording of the question. It is true that an individual can transcend the egoic phenomenon without the help of a different individuality, flesh and blood, that will help him, that will guide him. It happened, it is possible. Prabhuji does not say it is not possible. However, Prabhuji tells us, these situations were very rare, only of virtuous personalities who were already prepared, who were already disciples in themselves. Is it likely for an individual to transcend the egoic phenomenon without the help of a different individual? Not so much. It is even not likely with the help of an individual, and even less with the help of a different person, of a realized being that will guide him. And this is what we get in the first text. Prabhuji clarifies, it is possible, but it is likely that I will sit under a tree and an apple will fall on my head and I will discover the law of gravity. Not so likely. Is it possible? Yes, it happened. But these virtues of the spirit, Prabhuji tells us, were so prepared to transcend the egoic phenomenon that they did not need the help of a different individual because they were already disciples. We enter into the master-disciple relationship, as we spoke in the previous class, not because we are disciples, but because we want to be disciples and we are learning how to be disciples. But those virtues already acted in life as disciples, already in their conduct, in their thinking, they were open, they were receptive, they were cooperative with the universe, they were listening to whatever comes. Do all of us in this level? Of course not. And the question, of course, should be individual. If we think that we recognize ourselves in this level, beautiful. Those who do not and seek for self-realization, probably for them, the ultimate conditions will be to follow another realized being that can guide them on this path. It is true that over the course of history, there have been some enlightened beings who did not need the guidance of a flesh and blood master. In fact, it is possible to become enlightened without accepting a master, but not without being a disciple. These virtues of spirit had no masters, but were great disciples. I call them virtues because they are an exception to the rule, just as prodigies who compose music at a young age. But if you are not one of them, you will need the help of a master. And now Prabhuji clarifies two more important points. First is that if a master was an obstacle for our development, we would expect to develop much easier without this obstacle. Right? The less obstacles we have, the easier the path is. If this was the obstacle to our becoming enlightened, why are we not enlightened? although we do not have a master, which is a case of many of us. So it does not mean the fact that personalities transcend the egoic phenomenon without the help of a guru does not mean that to have instruction of a different personality is an obstacle. And the second point that Prabhuji makes here, which is important for our reflection, that it is obvious that we as egos will not favor this path of being disciples. To be a disciple is something that is against our egoic tendencies. We will only want to be disciples if we are desiring of truth, if we want to transcend our egoic tendencies. Out of the egoic tendencies, we will never prefer to have these qualities of a disciple. And this is why when we analyze the question, when we analyze the answer, when we analyze this reflection, we need to take into account that it is very likely that our conclusion about it is coming not out of intellectual thinking, but out of our desires and egoic tendencies. Many times we can think on a very sophisticated intellectual level, but if the source of our thinking is what is comfortable for us, is what we like, is what we do not like, our conclusion will not be true, even though it's coming from some intellectual effort. So if the intellect serves our desires, our egoic tendencies, it is not going to bring us clarity. And this is why we need to take it into account and suspect ourselves when we approach the answer, when we approach this topic, that it makes sense for us egos to think that it is possible to do it by ourselves, that it is better to do it by ourselves. So if this is our opinion, we need to take into account this likelihood that it's our ego that governs this decision and not a genuine investigation into the topic. If the master was an obstacle to awakening, everyone who does not have one would be enlightened. If you do not have a guru, who hinders you? Why are you not yet enlightened? Most people do not accept a spiritual master not because they do not need one, but because they cannot accept being a disciple. Gurus pose a vital danger because they attack the security of the egoic phenomenon. Obviously, the ego will try to defend itself by saying that it is not necessary, just like a reluctant child on a visit to the dentist. And now we promise that this answer is going to be comprehensive and addressing all levels of familiarity and experience with this relationship of master and disciple. And in the text that we are going to read now, Prabhuji addresses those who do not have difficulty to be disciples, who do not have difficulty to be humble, to cooperate, to listen, to put their agenda aside, but they are willing to do it. They mastered already this step to some extent. And in this stage, Prabhuji tells us, yes, the master can be an obstacle, but this obstacle is not posed by the master, but it's posed by the disciple, by our desire for comfort, by our desire for answers, by our maybe laziness of thinking, by us liking to get answers and not to think ourselves. In this level, Prabhuji says, yes, this can be an obstacle, but we speak again first on high levels of discipleship. And second, as we looked into in previous classes, a genuine master will never supply to us discomfort that we can seek. For two reasons. First, because the master sees us better than we see ourselves. He sees our tendencies. He sees from where coming our actions and desires, even from where comes our following him and clinging to his words and seeking for explicit guidance. If it comes from an egoic tendency, the Guru will not supply it to us. So the Guru will not give us this comfort that we might seek as disciples. And the second point that we mentioned in previous classes that we met when we spoke in regard to the attachment to the guru and the attraction to the guru, the disciple will never be able to meet an entity that gives him the security that we might seek as individuals, as egos, because the guru is an absence. So in this relationship, if the master is genuine, we will always meet ourselves. We'll always meet a place that demands us to take responsibility, to make changes, to think intensely. We will never get this relaxation if the master is genuine. The master-disciple relationship is eternal. However, it goes through different phases. It resembles our relationship with our biological parents. As children, we depend on their guidance for every last detail, such as when to eat or to go to bed. But as we mature, that relationship evolves into something new. Similarly, our spiritual parents may become obstacles for development, but only if they are not transcended in due time. And in the last part of this answer, Prabhuji tells us that not only the Guru will not allow us to find comfort in this relationship and to get a discount on the work that we need to do on ourselves, but he will be very happy to see us independent of him. We spoke about this point when we spoke about the Chaitya Guru, and also with regard to the attachment and to the attraction to the Guru. The Guru's interest is that we will stand on our own feet, as we said, that we will be free, that we will not need to ask him, but we'll be able to answer ourselves. So the Guru will never want us to cling to him when our time is ripe to be free. So I think in this article, what we are getting as sincere disciples and seekers of truth is 2 points that is important to understand. The bottom line is, of course, the Guru is never an obstacle. The other bottom line is that we can be obstacles, and soon we will see the ending of this article, the last sentence that is very significant. For true realization, we are the only obstacle. We are standing between us and our realization. Not any person, not any situation, not any circumstances that currently we face, as we tend to think. Often, the only problem is us and our approach and our state or our thinking. And of course cannot be an obstacle. We said not an external situation, and for sure cannot be an obstacle a realized being that is established in this consciousness that we are seeking, that we are desiring. So the problem for self-realization, again, is us. This is the last sentence again in this article that soon we are going to read in the next and last section. But what we get in addition is that we can fail or make mistakes in 2 ways. One is that we will want to be free from the relationship with the master because of our egoic tendencies, whether we will not want to enter into this relationship or we will want to end it when it's premature, when we are not yet free from our conditioning, where our egoic tendencies are still alive. And the second aspect is that we might want to hang on to the guidance of the Guru and not make an effort to transcend to the next step when we are ready to transcend the next step. And as I said, Prabhuji said, the master, who is for us our eyes, he is the seeing, he guides us. This is why we walked in this path, knows exactly when we are free. And because he wants, as we said also at this article, our realization as we want and maybe more, he will not want us to leave the relationship before we are ready and not after we are ready. Because his consciousness is so accurate. He sees. We do not say this is the beginning of this relationship. This is the origin of this relationship as we speak. And so when we enter into this relationship, only the master is qualified to know when we can continue forward without the help of his eyes. And I think that in the Zen tradition, we see this principle conveyed in a very beautiful and clear way. We mentioned it a little bit in one of the classes, that in the Zen tradition, when the disciple is recognized by his master to continue the path, to teach others, to be independent of his guidance, to leave the ashram, he gives him the ball and the rope to acknowledge this state. This is acknowledged in a very concrete and external manner, objectively in this world. And I want to share a story that I think beautifully shows us the point that we are speaking, that a genuine disciple understands the importance of the eyes of his master. He will never want to be free from the guidance of the master before the master recognizes it as the right moment. Because in the spiritual development, and for sure when we are associating with a realized being, we can advance in meditation. We can feel that we are wiser. We can feel that we see better. And we can think that we are already independent, mistakenly, when the egoic tendencies are still alive, are still threatening our freedom and our true liberation. And only the guru can see when these egoic tendencies no longer exist and we really can be free. And a genuine disciple understands it because his qualifications that a disciple develops is to suspect his own judgment and to use the help of other eyes. This is the significance of this giant grace that the universe can give us to receive a realized being that really will guide us on this path. So I want to share a story from the Zen tradition that I think beautifully shows it. So the story, it's a real story, it's not a legendary story, is about the sixth patriarch of Zen. His name is Huineng. And the story of Huineng is that he came to the monastery of his master, the fifth patriarch. His name is Hongren. And because he was very of low status, not so knowledgeable, he was not so esteemed in the eyes of all the disciples. But the master recognized his spiritual level, his spiritual ability. So he decided to put him in the rice hut to sift rice. This was his position, away from the disciples. And the explanation that we receive about it is because he wanted to isolate him from the disciples that can be unkind to him, because they thought themselves much better than him. And maybe it was also exactly what he needed for his spiritual life, most likely. So he was away from all the disciples. And the essence of the story that we want to share here is that once Huineng reached a level of consciousness that Hongren found him fit to be the continuation, to be the sixth patriarch, he went into the rice hut and asked him. We see here that in this level of consciousness, Individuals do not speak in a very gross and explicit language, but in a very subtle level. He asked him, "Is the rice white yet?" And what he wanted to ask is, or what he asked in this question, not only wanted, but he succeeded. Are you free? Are you enlightened? Are you ready? And Master Huineng answered. He was not then master, but he is master, so we call him master. The rice is white, but it has not yet been sifted. Which meant, yes, I am already independent. I am already free. But until you, my beloved master, don't grant me the acknowledgement, the permission, it is not considered ready. This is a necessary step. It is a beautiful interaction. They went into the office and Master Holmgren gave Huineng the bowl and the robe. And then he smuggled him from the ashram to escape all the jealous disciples, to make sure they will not kill him. But he was the sixth patriarch. And here we see this, again, important point that if we see someone in his level recognize it so clearly, it's probably beneficial for our evaluation of spiritual topics to adapt that only the master can recognize the level of us disciples, to know where we are at. So we will read Prabhuji's last words, and in this we will end today's class. Thank you for joining. Jai Prabhuji. When we board the train to arrive at a distant city, it is essential to get off when the train arrives at the right station. If we stay seated, we cannot reach our destination. In due course, the master will gladly bless the disciple to go their own way. If they remain attached, the obstacle will not be the guru, but the disciple's attitude. Only you can delay or impede your own self-realization.